Welcome to the Haunted Hangover Podcast Minisode. I'm Louie, and I'm joined by Tommy Pickles, a.k.a. Tommy Knuckles, a.k.a. Tommy New Metal,
there it is,
a.k.a. Tommy Valley. So, Tom, we're wrapping up our I guess reviews, right? I guess is what you would call this.
The review of the 3-part series, Fear Street.
Fear Street. We're wrapping it up. The third installment, Fear Street Part 3, 1666. Now, Tom, I think we've both agreed that we wanted to watch the entire trilogy to better gauge how we feel about all the films, like as a whole. We haven't really given it a rating, if you want to say that. I don't really like ratings because I think people, obviously with social media, no one ever agrees, but we didn't really, we talked about liking it or things we didn't like and yada, 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 but I think in this mini-sode we'll cement, we'll set it in stone what we think of the trilogy as a whole after talking about 1666, or technically 1666 and 1994 part 2. I
they
do
don't
like how they
advertise
did that.
Yeah,
they did. Well, I figured because we have been going back and forth between, you know, the kids in 1994 and then these, you know, flashbacks or, you know, other set pieces, different eras of the town of Shadyside and Sunnyvale. But real quick, as always, spoiler warning, because we're going to be kind of just all over the place talking about shit that happened in this final installment of Fear Street. So off the bat, Tom, what did you think of 1666?
Honest to God, it's my least favorite one. And I know that that's actually a controversial take. Some people think it's the best one. Some people really fell for the lore, the love story that was being pulled together. And I don't know. It just, the most boring part was the period piece.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe because, like, you know, I've seen movies like The Witch.
Yeah. And
just kind of being someone that's very into history. It was kind of a drag for me. And I feel like I get what they were trying to do. And it is tragic, but I think there could have been a better way to reveal the tragedy of, like, the real tragedy of Sarah Faye.
Okay.
Because that's what ultimately what it is. She was pretty much the scapegoat because of her sexuality.
Yeah.
Which I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But it felt weird watching. Like, it's hard. I don't know if they sold it well enough because, like, for the most part, I felt like the first half.
Yeah.
Was me just watching a bunch of people in make-believe 1666 blaming lesbians for being witches, and it really felt weird, and I wasn't too keen on it. I could see why some people think it's amazing. I didn't particularly care for it. Like, I feel like, because I get what they're trying to do, and I feel like it's just been done a little better, and I got bored. I think the second half, where they bring it back to 1994, that was a little better for me. I like that more. But ultimately, I don't know. I wasn't a huge fan. And I know I'm in the minority. I know that more people liked it.
I think there's people that didn't like this installment. I think it seems like this is what I've taken from this whole Fear Street trilogy thing, from what I've seen on social media, which can be a very toxic place. It looks like people over the age of like 30, like people around my age, like mid-30s, hated this. like in general, the entire trilogy of films, they did not like them. They either got bored during the second one, or they thought like the middle one was the best one because it reminded them again of Friday the 13th and stuff like that. Or again, if you're younger, you enjoyed it and you loved all three of them and you were excited for Friday to come so you can continue on with the story. My take on the whole 1666 thing, I dug it. I enjoyed the concept. I like that the character, is it Dina? Is it Dina is the main character, right?
Yeah.
I like the whole idea of her going back and kind of embodying her spirit or soul. Again, it's not explained. She touches when she completes the corpse of Sarah Fear with the hand and the skeleton and the body, combining them, she kind of goes back and she's aware of she's reliving what Sarah Fear went through, and she knows it, like she knows exactly what happened by experiencing that. I do like that concept. I do wish she was more aware. Like, it's like that character from 1994 she's reliving what happened to Sarah Fear, but she knows, like, she's more in control of the situation.
Gotcha.
But I guess they didn't want to go that route. There's just kind of like she's reliving again, very flashbacky. She's reliving what happened to Sarah Fear and experience. I did like that. Now, I will say some of the accents were kind of off and a little strange, like the actors kind of putting on what would you call it? It wasn't was it an Irish accent, an old English?
A lot of people sounded Irish, which is not, like, that's what kind of annoyed me about it, because a lot of them sounded Irish, or modern like Manchester English, but it's like this is old time Puritan English, like ironically. Having a Southern accent is more indicative of what Old English would sound like. Yeah. Because Southern accents are kind of based on Old English.
Gotcha.
So, like, but it's just, a lot of things felt weird. Like, the fact that all these kids were having, like, a little rave party. It's like Puritans were kicked out of England for having no fun. Like, there's no way. And, like, all these kids are fucking around in the woods, and they just so happen to hate lesbians. It's like, what? Like, that's the line? Well, like, this is puritanical. This is the colonies. The colonies, like, you've seen the movie The Witch. Those people, they were miserable and had no fun.
It's very different. Again, I think this is... You can't compare The Witch, because that dude... Like, if you look into his films, and even like something like The Lighthouse, which was the same director as The Witch, he is like, he knows how to write dialogue as realistic as possible during those period pieces. Like, he's phenomenal at that. And those are both, personally speaking, those are like, that's like cinema. That's like some good shit. Those are both great movies. I love The Witch and I love Lighthouse. But I guess with this smaller budget, not the same type of filmmaker. It's obviously not the writers, and I believe, if I remember correctly, the director Lee Janake and 2 other people wrote this script. I don't remember about the previous. Probably was the same group of people, but it was like 3 people from what I remember the screenplay. Obviously, it's not their strong suit writing this time period's dialogue. But I did think that was a little meh. You could tell it was made with a smaller budget because they just built this town, but so was The Witch. It was just like the house and the land around it, which works. I thought some of the gore was good, like with the pig that ate its babies and some of the stuff that happened with people dying. Personally, like for me, I thought one of the strongest scenes in 1666 was the scene with the pastor and the kids. Where he murdered like all 12 kids and removed their eyes and shit, and he was possessed, basically kind of showing that he was the first person to be possessed and become a killer. So I did like that because it was really eerie, and it reminded me of like a haunted house type setting you'd go through during Halloween. As far as the whole, like, the town was anti-gay and mad at them, at Sarah Fear because she was a lesbian or whatever. Again, it makes sense if you think about it. During during that time, I guess people were really religious, and it was frowned upon that, like, being gay was, the devil's work or witchcraft.
Oh, well, it wasn't even just frowned upon. It was a
sin.
It was quite literally a sentence of death, like that. And then I'm not trying to say like they shouldn't have included that. I just feel like the commitment to the era didn't sell it for me. Gotcha. It just seemed, I don't know. It didn't, I think I was bored most of it and just kind of got annoyed. Because, again, I don't know. Because, it's obvious. Like, we know that this was not, it's just in the name Puritan. We know what puritanical, we still face the repercussions of puritanical ideology in America today. We still, of course, a lot of our politics and a lot of some of our more conservative culture is based around all puritanical thinking.
No, of course.
But I think my main thing is it was so kind of forced in this last part. And because the twist is, like, do we want to get to the twist is, it's not Sarah. Sarah is not the one.
Which I did like. I
like
the
twist.
Yeah.
I like the twist. My only problem is that there wasn't a lot of foreshadowing to that at all.
There was a little.
This part.
There was a little. Because
very
the sheriff,
little.
Sheriff Good, you knew something was up with him. Sorry to cut you off, but you knew something. Like when I watched that first episode and they introduced the sheriff, there was something sinister about him. You knew something was up. And I did like that Sarah Fear was innocent and she was a good person. And it just so happened that this greedy family just wanted to live, you know, these great like lives in the future. Like his ancestors, I guess he wanted his, you know, the people after him to just live.
The descendants.
The descendants to just live these great, you know, wealthy and great and good lives. And it was and I do like how you learn that it was all Shady Side. It was the sacrifices in Shady Side that helped. Was it Sunnyvale? And that's why there was that division. Like you learn where that division came from, and I do like that as well. I think the world building, they did do a great job with that, and then him being again the main antagonist. I dug it. I didn't think it was bad at all, you know. And again, I thought the character, like Sarah Fear, the way she's portrayed in this, she's very likable, and you do kind of feel bad for her, you know. And like when she gets her hand cut off, dude, that was fucking. I was like, ugh, like it was a pretty good. That was a good effect. And I like how you see that, like you see how her body and the hand were separated, and how, you know, like leading up, you find out where all that red moss came from that was growing on the rocks, and I just liked like how it all went back to that, and that takes us. I think we should jump forward and focus now on the 1994 Part 2 aspect of this installment. That to me, and this is where we kind of disagree, was all the 94 stuff to me was the weakest part of this trilogy. Like I love throwback type shit like Stranger Things and, you know, movies like that where they take it back to the 80s, and the 90s is becoming the new, you know, the new 80s when it comes to films and being period pieces. But I think that was the most forced aspect with the music and the fashion and stuff like that. So
they played The Offspring.
With the Offspring, and at the end, like again, that's what I liked about 1666. They couldn't fall back on that. That's true. Like it helped. Like they had to avoid using music because that would have completely killed the mood, you know, of that entire, you know, first hour of 1666. What'd you think of the ending with the whole, you know, with all the killers being summoned and then them trying to defeat Sheriff Good, and good is evil? I did like that. That was pretty funny. That was a good little good wordplay there. What'd you think of the whole mall, the finale, the whole mall sequence?
I think it's because at this point we're committed to the story. We want to see it end. Yeah. So I was along for the ride. I was like, all right, I'm into this. Mm-hmm. I think that's why Part 2 is my favorite. It's the least connected. It doesn't have to fit everything in, and it's just it's a singular story. But also I thought about this. Like I get it. Like the Good family, they've committed to this curse to keep, you know, bring good fortune to their family. Yeah. And I thought about it. But I'm like, okay, so you could literally ask for anything and have all the good fortune, and you asked, the thing you chose the most out of anything is to be the sheriff of the town.
Like, well, his brother was the mayor, right? If I remember
but still, he's the mayor. Like you could literally, you're making deals with the devil, and this is the best you can ask for. Like,
he really wanted to be a sheriff. He really, really wanted to be the sheriff.
Yeah, but it's not that hard to be the sheriff of a small town. Like you have to get elected.
According to this movie, it is like that was something he really wanted. I guess it was just an unachievable goal according to the lore in this movie. I do like how his brother gets hit by like a garbage truck as he's leaving his house. Yeah. Like just like some Final Destination shit, like a fucking a garbage truck just fucking destroys his car with him in it. Yeah. But going back to the whole mall sequence at the end there, I do, again, and my one nitpick I'll get to in a second, I do like the whole sequence where all the killers are fighting each other, where they spray them with the blood.
Yep.
And they like just start going at each other. And again, going what I just mentioned, my nitpick, the whole blood thing, I'm still a little, I don't know if maybe I'm just missing it, how the killers will avoid people, but then will kill a random cop.
That's the cop had no blood on him.
Still not explained thoroughly, still a little convoluted, because they're running around, she's cutting her hand, they put the blood in the water to kind of spray on other things to get the killers to follow, but then when those cops show up, they're murdered. Yeah. Like, technically, the killer would walk right past the cop and go straight to them, and I get it, fine. The cop, if the cop shot at the killer, I understand the killer, like, the cop is technically getting in the killer's way.
One of them didn't even shoot at him. He just got killed.
And it goes back to that sequence in, I believe it was in the first one, when they're at the hospital. Like, the one asshole boyfriend guy just gets murdered, and he had no blood on him. He wasn't in the way. He wasn't, like, pushing the killer or trying to block the killer. So that aspect of it just didn't work for me. It's not, I just feel that whole blood thing. It's cool. It's a cool, like, plot device, but I still don't think it was fully fleshed out, even in this last story, because those two cops didn't need to be murdered. Technically, if they were just pointing the guns at one of the kids, the killer would just walk past them. They'd be like, what the fuck? And maybe point their gun at the killer. And that would trigger the killer to kill them, because they're technically in the way. But, like, there was a scene of, like, the janitor, the guy that randomly decides to help them at the end. And he's just standing there, and the killer walks right past them. And again, that whole thing was kind of weird. I will say all the shots in the mall are beautifully shot. Like, all the neon lighting, I loved all of that. And I did like the whole sequence with Good and the main girl, I think it's Dina. I keep forgetting if her name's Dina, but I believe it is Dina. Her, like, underneath those tunnels that we keep going back to, and her being stabbed, and then she has, I do like that little touch where they had her tape all the Fear Street books to her chest to avoid, I think she gets stabbed and to block it from happening, and then she saves Sam, and they live, happily ever after. And again, it was a good way of wrapping up the story with some odd plot devices that I feel were sprinkled throughout the entire trilogy that were a little weird. Again, I still think she's a great lead character. She was very likable. I thought Good was a good villain. That's funny. Good, he was a good villain.
Yeah.
With, seeing his family's backstory and the reason why he was doing all this, it worked for me. Those two characters I thought were very strong. I do like that sequence too, where I think he touches that big, gross heart or whatever that thing was, pulsating thing, and then he sees all the victims that have been killed that were killed during 1994, and then he sees Sarah Fear, her original look. That was cool too. But yeah, if you had to give this an overall grade, Tom, the whole trilogy out of 5, what would you give it?
Out of 5, I had it out of 10, but if I had to do it out of 5, I'd give the whole thing a solid 3.
You know what? That's what I have too. A 3.
Yeah, a solid 3. I was going to give it a 65.
Yeah.
Because it is fun. It's fun. Mm-hmm. It's not high. You know, it's just a fun time. I like the characters all throughout. I really liked the first one. I felt it fell through towards the end with too many killers. Yeah. Second one was my favorite. It was straightforward. The most, like, singular storyline. Yeah. I liked the characters involved. Mm-hmm. And then I personally just didn't care for the third one all that much. Mm-hmm. But again, it's an overall fun experience. I kept thinking about this. This is 6 hours of content.
Oh God, dude.
6 hours of content. And part of me just thought I would have, maybe this is me pitching my own thing. Mm-hmm. It could have worked better if it was maybe a 6-part series, hour long each. Yes. Each one tells a different story about a different era of the killer. Mm-hmm. But each episode reveals more and more about the curse till the final act. Yeah. That, like, episode 6 is where you get to the conclusion where
1994.
all the details from each a decade are lined up, and then they have to enact and take revenge. And even if because it's not like, but that's just me personally. I just felt like that to me would have worked better because I think it's almost like maybe they wrote this as one massive script and filmed it in 3 different parts.
Yeah.
Because I think my biggest issue is that, like, I know you said that you saw the foreshadowing. I still feel like maybe because the second part there was very little foreshadowing because it's so disconnected from the other two. Maybe it just, watching it in sequential order almost made a lot of the pieces feel disconnected for me. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think if it was an episodic hour-long each because I wanted to see some of the other killers.
Yeah.
Like there was one that one killer he's like he seemed like a 1920s killer.
Yes. The guy with the knife, right? He has like a
knife.
The
guy with the knife.
Burnt type face, yeah.
I would like to have seen like that could have been like a cool little noir horror story. Like, a murder mystery. And then, you have the girl, and then you
Ruby,
have like
right?
this
The girl with the switchblade, yeah.
Then you have that one character. He had like this weird like crimson mask.
Yes.
Like this long, that guy looked cool. Like I want to know what that guy was about.
Yeah, I think we might have briefly touched on that in the last episode. I agree. I think this would have worked better as a series, an hour, like a 6-part hour-long series. When you watch it, you could kind of see where it could have been like cut. Like, okay, that's the end of this episode. That's the end of this episode. And
well,
where they
like,
continued.
The last one literally did that. It literally had a part 2. Mm-hmm. It literally gave us that edit.
Yeah. And it could have worked as a series. And again, that might have been what their original concept was, like Fear Street the series, or whatever, 1994 or whatever maybe they would have called the entire thing. Or like just, The Legend of Sarah Fear or some shit. But I do think that would have made it it would have been easier to watch because I've complained about it ad nauseum at this point. Like they're fucking long. Like out of all of the 3, I think this was the only one that required a 2-hour long runtime almost. Like I feel like the other 2 didn't need to be an hour and 50 minutes each. Like on 90 minutes, 2 hours, that would have been fine. There was a lot of stuff I feel they could have cut back on and changed up. Now, the rating I'd give it is 3. I am curious if they're gonna, and it seems like this was pretty successful, if they'd bring it back and kind of continue the story, because there is like a little cliffhanger at the end that someone else gets their hand on the book. So maybe they'll bring back another 3 films. I don't know, that might be a little extra, but you never know. But overall, I thought it was a cool I guess kind of experiment, because if I remember correctly, I don't think any Netflix has done anything like this where they've had 3 films that are connected in like a event. So
no,
hopefully it encourages them to do that more, because that would be kind of cool. And I still say this would have been a perfect October release. They fucking slacked. They slacked on that big time, releasing this in the middle of the summer. But maybe they have some other shit coming out in October. That's why they decided to release this in July. But you know what? It's a little Halloween in July.
So. They have to make room for Hoobie Halloween too.
Oh, I hope not.
I'll watch it. Hubie Halloween too.
That could be a Hubie Christmas movie. Maybe I'll check that out. But I think stay away from Halloween. So that was Fear Street Part 3, 1666. Be sure to subscribe, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Haunted Hangover, and if you can rate and review us, that'd be greatly appreciated. And remember, the best cure for a hangover is
more booze.
Later, guys.